The hour here. We welcome all of you. Hello and welcome to Thought Leader Thursday. We're so excited to have Reverend Dr. Allie Benjamin with us today. We'll talk a little bit more about that and what she plans on doing today. I just do want to remind you that she'll be sharing a few things and then we'll open it up for questions. So we're always wanting to do that. Just make sure that everybody is able to make the comments they need to make and ask the questions they need to ask. So thank you for being here and welcome to Thought Leader Thursday. Is there anyone that is called to pray us in, to bless this time? Okay, then I will go ahead and do that. And so let's just take a deep breath in and a releasing breath out, and just be here now. We know that spirit, we are all one, and that whatever is to happen here will happen beautifully and unfold in a way that we haven't imagined. Whatever is on our hearts and in our minds to know and learn, we'll do that today. And so we just feel free to be, to know that all is well and that we are in the perfect right place at the perfect right time. And so we bless this time together. We give thanks for everyone that is here. We give thanks for our beautiful speaker that she volunteered and said yes to being here today and sharing her wisdom and knowledge with us. We're so grateful. And we just give thanks and say all together, and so it is. All right. So, yeah, Reverend Dr. Allie Benjamin. She's joining us today to discuss a little bit about what the Enneagram is, and I may or may not be saying that right, that she can correct it when she starts to talk. That's a path to conscious relationships and authentic work. And she's here to help us discover and understand a little bit about what it is, what the Enneagram is, and how it works with what we already believe with the New Thought principles that we share and believe in and do our work through. Dr. Benjamin is a pioneering voice in the human potential movement, and she passionately advocates for self-awareness, for healing, and for spiritual awakening. So through her spiritual counseling and through her coaching, she weaves together these New Thought principles, the Enneagram wisdom, and her artistic expression. She's a fabulous artist as well, to guide individuals into activating their authentic power and their creative energy. So we're just really excited about this, our time here with Reverend Dr. Allie. We will be opening it to questions. She's just going to start with setting it up and giving us a platform for where she's going to be jumping off from, and then we'll open it up for questions as well. So if you have anything that's happening that you have a question about, just go ahead and write that down for yourself. So when you raise your hand, you'll be able to get back to that. So let us welcome Reverend Dr. Allie Benjamin. Allie, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, PJ. So good to see you. It was
Yeah, always good to see you.
Yeah, we were just at the Unity Village at the Anton Retreat. And for those of you that were there, it was great to see you, great to be in that energy. So thanks for sharing a little bit about me. I have been a New Thought minister, practitioner of science of mind, and member of Anton since the late 90s. And so member of Anton since the late 90s. I've been a minister for about 15 years now. And I founded a center here in my state of Utah, the Satya Center. And so a couple of years ago, well, 3.5 years ago now, I decided to dive into the Enneagram and took a year-long program to really learn about what it is and to become a teacher and a coach in the Enneagram. And so I finished that course, and it was a very extensive course, and I got the great opportunity of working with 50 or so people to try my new skill set on. And I considered, how would I bring this into my ministry? How would I work with it to support people right where they are? And I have a a great love of working one-on-one with people and doing workshops and combining my art. I call them art and soul workshops. And so during COVID, when the lockdown happened, I was leading two spiritual centers at the time, one in Big Bear Lake, California, and one here in Utah, the Satya Center. And when the lockdown happened, both churches closed their doors. And so that was sort of a reconciling for me what my ministry wanted to be. And so diving into the Enneagram and finding greater tools and understanding around the human condition is right up my alley, no pun intended. And so I decided to step away from pulpit ministry and really dive into helping people move through challenging situations. We in our family had just gone through a loss of our child. And so I was really dealing with a lot of grief. And I found that diving into the Enneagram gave me something to focus my attention on so I could understand people's behaviors around stress and struggle and grief. And so it's really opened up so much for me. And I've brought it into my coaching, into my groups that I lead, and onto my podcast, which is Growing Edge Live, which I do every week. And so for those of you, PJ and I were talking ahead of time, and I said, I don't know, I love to go really deep, and I'll try and not go too deep. I'll try and just stay surface. But my real passion is to go deep into this. And so if you want more understanding or would like to chat with me about it, we can do that one-on-one. And we want to leave enough time for you to ask questions. So I'm just going to give you some of the things that I find most helpful about the Enneagram. Firstly, the Enneagram is sort of a combination of things. There's a lot of ancient wisdom within it, going all the way back to early philosophers, the desert mothers and fathers. It's a blending of mysticism, philosophy, and it was brought to this country a long time ago in the last in the early 1900s. And when it came here, it sort of to America, a lot of different people picked it up and sort of added to it. And the world of psychology brought it on. And so you could go to the bookstore, let's say, and go to different sections of the bookstore and find it in psychology section or the religious section or the self-help section. And so there's a particular flavor, whatever sort of lane you're in or whatever you prefer, either the spiritual view or the religious view. There's a big Catholic movement with the Enneagram, or the psychological that leans a little bit away from the spiritual, or a mix. It's a psycho-spiritual system. That's how I've kind of framed it up. And then there's the more surface approach to the Enneagram, which is like a typology, like a personality profiling typology system, much like Myers-Briggs or some of the other typology systems that the business world uses to help with their teams and their leadership. And so knowing that, I think, is very helpful. So I've tried to keep my focus pretty vast and look at it from all of these different angles. But my real passion is the psycho-spiritual, to use the Enneagram as a sacred path to wholeness, to realizing wholeness. And so for those of you that have been on your spiritual path for some time, and I would imagine if you're here today that you can go as deep into this through that spiritual doorway with that spiritual lens to help you unearth just dimensions of your own being and non-dual reality. So there is that. But for those of you that are, let's say, struggling with your own issues, then it can be very specific to looking at blind spots, core motivations, triggers, why we get triggered, and what we're trying to avoid, where we can get stuck. And that seems to be that's what I combine with my counseling and my coaching, is to help people identify these things. And it's been extremely helpful. And so I'm going to look at my notes a little bit so I'm not jumping over anything. So basically, the Enneagram teaches us that it's a combination of our personality structure that has been created over time, especially in our early childhood. We create this structure to make sure that we are seen and heard and loved and nurtured and get our needs met. And so that's what in the Enneagram language is referred to as the ego structure or the personality structure. And that is influenced by our parents, our caregivers, our siblings, our birth order, our socioeconomic background or environment, and also the personality types of our parents and all of our family members. All of that is deeply influential on building our own sense of self, our own personality structure. But at the very core of who we are, and as New Thoughters and metaphysicians, we know that we have a true self, our authentic self, our soulful self, our sacred self. And this higher self is the essence of who we are. And so the Enneagram refers to that as essence, and then the personality structure is ego. And so understanding that it's not just your Enneagram type isn't only based on your behaviors, like a lot of typology systems or personality profiling systems. It's dependent on your the kind of activities you do, your habits, your behaviors, your preferences. This goes deeper. This is more about why you're doing what you're doing. So if you consider, and many of you have children, grandchildren, and you'll see this, that we all come into this world as little ones, infants, with our own unique temperament, our own way of sort of being in the world. Some are more introverted, some are more extroverted. And so there's this core sort of temperament that we have. And we come into the world as nonverbal beings with this core sense of, well, we don't even really know who we are at that time, but there is a essence of who we are in how much energy we give, how much energy we require. And that's what I'm referring to when I say temperament. We have a particular way that we are showing up. And then as we grow up and we age month by month, year by year, I'd say for the first 7 years, we start to, in New Thought language or metaphysical language, we start to get conditioned or programmed by our environment. And so we sort of take this temperament, this early sense of who we are, and then it gets sort of, things get pulled in so that we can maintain connection with those that are important to us, and we can get a sense of getting our needs met. And so we learn very quickly what those around us need, or how we can get attention from those around us. And those behaviors start to sort of grow legs or grow wings, and they start to become this personality structure. So there are 9 different types on the Enneagram symbol. And the Enneagram symbol is a circle, and that circle represents unity, and that represents this sort of wholeness that contains what's on the inside, which is there's a triangle which presents the personality types, and then there's this hexad, this other sort of geometrical star-shaped formation that creates movement and dynamism within this symbol. And so it is a very fluid system. It's not fixed. And a lot of people can be, can not want to jump into something like this because it might feel like that you're being put into a box. And as I mentioned, there are 9 types, and those types sit on the outside of that circle, 1 through 9. And a lot of people feel like, well, to be typed or classified in that way puts me in a box. And what the Enneagram wisdom tells us is it's not putting you in a box as much as the Enneagram wisdom helps you see more clearly the box that you've created for yourself, meaning the box of your personality system, your ego structure, why you do what you do, your habits and behaviors, your motivations, your fears, your desires. It's all sort of bound up. And the Enneagram, if someone's willing to go a bit deeper into it, will reveal, oh, okay, this is the system or the structure that I've created, and the world has influenced over me, meaning conditioned me. My environment has programmed me in particular ways based on my temperament. And so we can learn about all the different types of personalities. And it's surprising that we all fall into one of these 9 buckets. And just to go a little deeper, there are more than the 9. There are other influencing factors that are very key to understanding. And I think this would be something probably that I would share more readily than what type someone might be, is what instinct somebody has. And there are 3 instincts, 3 instinctual types. And this is extremely helpful in understanding ourselves. And so I'll get into that in just a minute. But as the Enneagram sort of puts out a map to help us move from our ego to our essence, we begin to see that we can open up our perspective to bring in greater energy, and we can also get clearer on the energy and the personality of our loved ones, which is extremely helpful. And if you work in a community, it can be very helpful for you to be able to see people in your teams, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and what their blind spots are. And the Enneagram can reveal that. And so there are 9 types, as I mentioned, and we'll go through those now. There's type 1, which is known as the improver. There are other names, like I mentioned, all these other people that have sort of built upon the Enneagram have given different names over the course of time. And so don't get too fixed to a name of a type, because there are many names to the types, but this is kind of the general idea. So type 1 is the improver. They are they're very focused on integrity. They have a loud inner critic, and they're always striving to be good or do things right. So that is a type 1. Then there is the type 2, and type 2 is the helper. And the helper is all about love and connection, generosity, and they can be very self-forgetting because they're focused on the other. Then there's 3, the achiever or the performer, and they are very image conscious. They are driven to succeed, and they are seeking to bring value to the world. Then there's the 4, the individualist. And the individualists are always seeking to go deeper, to understand themselves and others. They can be very attuned to beauty, creativity, and they're very emotional and have a deep sense of longing. Then there's the number 5, the observer. These individuals are also known as the investigator. They're very hungry for knowledge and wisdom and gaining expertise in particular things. They're the most introverted of all the 9 types, and they can be quite protective of their time and their energy and their resources. Then we have type 6, which is the loyalist or the loyal skeptic. And they are very productive. They're very committed to others. They're very loyal. They seek to be guides for others, but they're also seeking certainty, and they're seeking to avoid fear by knowing who's in charge or having a sense of an authority figure. Then there's 7, the enthusiast. And the enthusiast or the epicure or the adventurer, they are always seeking possibility and adventure and chasing the shiny objects. They have a little aversion to the heavier or darker emotions, and they don't like to feel trapped in terms of options. Then there's the type 8, the challenger. They are about maintaining control and strength and power. They like to protect others as well as their own sense of self. And they can be big energy and can be very overbearing at sometimes. And so that energy can have a big impact, especially in a group setting or a team setting. Then finally, there's the peacemaker. And the peacemaker is all about peace. They're about merging with other people. They're about maintaining harmony. And they can be a little self-forgetting because their main objective is to consider everybody's point of view. And so those are the 9 types. Now, the Enneagram has a lot of sort of sets of 3. And these 9 types fit into 3 categories titled the centers of intelligence. And so if you're interested in finding out which type you are or which type one of your loved ones is, understanding the centers of intelligence might be helpful, because if you can't land on one type, because really we're a mix of all of the 9 types. We just have a propensity or a leaning into one predominantly, but we all have all 9 parts of these personalities within us. But over the course of your lifetime, you will tend to be one type and one type only, but learn to grow into these other aspects of ways of being and personality. So these 3 centers of intelligence are the head, the heart, and the belly or the gut or the body center. So the head center, these individuals, they're the 5s, 6s, and the 7s, and they are predominantly thinking types. And they're constantly engaging their intellect to avoid fear, because that's kind of their kryptonite, is fear. They don't want to feel anxiety, fear, or uncertainty. So they're going to try and figure everything out so that doesn't happen. Then there's the heart-centered types, which are the 2, 3s, and 4s. Now, these types, they are very attuned emotionally. They're the feeling types, and they are predominantly scanning the people around them to make connection and make sure that they feel loved or liked or valued or appreciated. And so the heart types are constantly trying to avoid any sense of shame or guilt or sadness. So they're going to always be working in the field, meaning, for instance, the 2s want to gain affection and love and attention through being helpful. The 3s want to gain approval and attention through being successful. And the 4s want to gain attention and love by being their unique self and presenting that. And so the heart types are always about feelings. That's not to say that these types don't have access to the other centers of intelligence, like the head and the body or the belly. We all do. But typically, one is predominant, one is just under the predominant one, and then there's one that's repressed or suppressed. And so the final triad, the final intelligence center, is the body. And the body, the body, because I did the head and the heart. And the bodies, they are all about action. They're about doing, and they're about their own autonomy, and they're trying to avoid anger or rage. And so they go about trying to control the outer environment and in an attempt to feel in control and protective of themselves. And so each of the 9 types, each of the 3 body types, 8s, they're the ones that will be most in touch with their anger and display that more readily, but they won't really necessarily be aware of how that anger energy feels or impacts others. So they won't be aware that they're even angry sometimes, but the rest of us will know. We'll feel it, but they don't. They just feel that as being themselves. The 9s, they will go about trying to maintain peace and go about fulfilling the needs of others to avoid their own sense of what they need, as a way of controlling, as a way of not feeling frustrated. And then the 1s, they are completely, typically disconnected from their anger, because that's not good. And the 1s are all about being good and perfect and improving things. And so the 1s will have their anger suppressed and internalized. And so for the 1s, anger feels like a lot of inner critic, a lot of shoulds going on inside them. And so there's different ways that the different types process these centers of intelligence, the anger, the fear, and the shame. And so that's another thing that's super important. And then one more thing before we jump into the questions is the instincts. We have these primary instincts, and this is related to the reptilian brain, this part of us that is seeking survival. And so each of us fall into one of these instinct buckets or categories. Now, the first one is the self-preservation type. For those that are self-preservation type, they're very concerned with themselves, having enough food, having their needs met, having their home, having a home base, feeling like they can retreat into a space that is theirs, and they have everything they need. And once that is intact, then they can be more generous with others. But a self-preservation type is going to be more self-focused and take care of those things before they consider the others. The next instinct group is the social. And the social instinct types are very focused on the tribe. They're more concerned with how they fit in or belonging. And so a lot of their decisions, a lot of what they do will take into consideration how they can fit in or belong or meet the needs or work together, as opposed to the self-preservation type that has some of the social instinct, but their own needs will come first. Now, in my family, in my relationship, I'm a self-preservation, my husband's a social. And so we have very different, we can bump up against each other in this way. Because if I don't feel that we're going on holiday tomorrow, and so I'm very packing my suitcase, making sure I have everything I need, whereas my husband is not concerned about that. He'll do it at the last minute, as long as he's got some activities and some things planned for when we get to our vacation. So you can see how within a partnership, within a marriage, within a community, there's different instincts that people will be instinctually sort of moving towards fulfilling that need. And then finally, the final instinct it's called sexual. It's also known as one-to-one. And this instinct it's not about sex as much as it's about intimacy, a sense of bonding with the other. So the focus for the sexual type is that one-to-one relationship, or relationship with a very close knit, let's say a family of origin. And so their interests, their decision making, how they organize their life, how they make decisions are based on that connection, maintaining that connection, and having that kind of energy that will be attractive to the other. And so you can see with these three types, self-preservation, social, and sexual, that just knowing which your type is can be very revealing. And once you know your type, then you can start to grow awareness, self-awareness about how to develop or grow into being more social. If you're like me, introverted self-preservationist, you can learn to be more social. You can learn how to develop the art of harnessing your magnetic energy and bonding with other people. Whereas that might be a blind spot if you're not that type. And so I think I could go down many different avenues here, and I am open to talk about the very sort of surface or superficial elements of the Enneagram, such as the types. I'm also willing to discuss deeper elements of in the Enneagram language. There's things called the holy ideas, which are sort of spiritual non-dual concepts that are, in science of mind, I think we would call them the God qualities. We could discuss those. We could talk about the things that I've discussed as far as the instincts and the instincts and the body types. We can talk about just about anything. And so if you have questions about how this relates to your ministry or your leadership, or the people you're working with one-on-one, I have tremendous experience with bringing this into coaching sessions, helping people understand what they need treatment for. If someone comes to you with a relationship issue and they don't understand, the Enneagram can be used to because there's a lot of questions that become clear once you understand the Enneagram types to help people get to their cause of discontent, and what they want to be treating for or working towards or yeah. So PJ, is there anything, because I know you and I have worked a little bit together in this field, and I know that you might see what I'm not seeing. So is there anything that
No, it's wonderful. You've given a nice overview of what's possible, and of course, you have it's like anything else, you can see a little bit of yourself in pretty much all of that. Yeah, I think you're giving a great overview and certainly opening it up for more questions. I see Celeste has a question. There was someone else that dropped a question in the chat, Cindy. Cindy, you should raise your digital hand if you feel good about that, and ask that question to Allie so she can answer it for everyone. But I'm gonna go ahead and call on Celeste. You have a question or a thought?
Yes, my question is this, for the many of us that are been on a spiritual path for a long period of time and find that their types, be it Enneagram or in my case, Myers-Briggs, change when you're talking about what you were, how you were evaluated when you were in a professional world, and the people you interacted with there, and then how you are in a spiritual uh center kind of relationships.
yeah.
And does it really change?
Hmm. Well, it doesn't change. Um,
Hmm.
if you're a student or a seeker that wants to really understand what Celeste is talking about, it's not going to be a quick answer. Like, it's going to take some self study, some self inquiry, some self observation. And the personality that we build in relation to our career or our vocation might take on a life of its own, because we we don't really want to show up in our vocation, and maybe in our ministry if that was your vocation, but we don't want to show up in the corporate world with all of these deeper philosophical sides of us. So we would develop certain skills based on the work we're doing. But the core essence or the core type of who we are is really formed when we're young, based on trying to get the needs met, avoiding being, fear, avoiding shame, avoiding our anger. And so our type doesn't change, but we do. I've done so many typing interviews, and that's what happens when you get into the Enneagram and you want support. You can have a typing interview with someone, or you can go online and there's many tests, but a lot of them can be inaccurate. It's said that 60% of the testing isn't accurate because it doesn't get to the deeper things that you can get to in an actual typing interview that goes on for about an hour. Wow. So what happens is, when I do a typing interview with someone, I get to what Celeste is asking. It's like, I want to know what this person that I'm interviewing was like when they were, before they got into the work world. I want to know who they were, let's say in their 20s, because that's before you start to learn and grow and spread your wings and start to bring on new habits and behaviors, and you gain self-awareness as you age. So you do feel different from your 20-year-old self to, let's say, your 60-year-old self. It seems like you're a completely different person, and you are. But understanding your core type is helpful, because there are blind spots for us when we're in our 20s, when we're in our 80s. We're still going to have that sense of whether it's trying to avoid our fear, our shame, or our anger. There's still going to be some things that knowing your type can help you get to that. But So once you know your Enneagram type, let's say for type 3, which there's quite a few type 3s that I've come across within the world of ministry. That's the performer, the achiever. Lots of my friends are type 3s, and it's about being seen, being helpful, sharing our wisdom, and developing in that way. And so there can be a great emphasis on that. But there can be great blind spots in being authentic, for example. So you might be a real chameleon and be able to meet the needs of everyone around you and show your worth in that way, but you lose track of who you really are, your authentic self. And so there are ways that someone, say a type 3, that would come to me that had been very successful, but was really feeling a sense of, well, yeah, I've had all these accomplishments, I've had all this success, but I really don't feel connected to my dreams, or like I don't really know what I want. And so that the growth path that the Enneagram can give you is seeing the numbers on each side of you. So for the 3, there's the 2 and the 4. These are known as the wings. And many people that come into the Enneagram hear that term, wings. And so a type 3 might be encouraged to develop their 2 wing or develop their 4 wing. So a 3 developing their 2 wing would learn how to be more in service of others by having genuine connection, not avoiding feelings, but deepening into feelings. Yeah. They may move into their 4 wing by being more authentic, being more creative, channeling their energy into doing things that they really love. And so this, I've given you an example of type 3 and how a 3 can morph and change over the course of their life, depending on their growth path and their self-awareness. And that happens for each of the types. And actually, there aren't just 9 types. Based on these wings, which way you lean, you then can be, for me, I'm a type 4, I lean towards type 5. That's a subtype. A subtype of a type 4 is a 4 with a 5 wing, or a 7 with an 8 wing. And so there are in total 27 types. And then to even add more complexity, it actually turns out that there are 57 types, more than the, Myers-Briggs or other typologies. Anyway, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, there's a few more people that have some questions. This is just so good. And I think that this is, I put your information in the chat, Allie, and so if people have more questions and want to go deeper, because this is a lot of great information. It's great. You clearly have great information there and can go very deep. So I put that in the someone says there are 7. So can you check it later and make sure that is your actual address for people to get a hold of you. Cindy, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I have a question. I'm pretty new to this Enneagram idea. And is it when you do you try to do one or have one done for you? Is it like a horoscope, or is it something that you just take a snapshot of at a certain time? How does it work?
Great answer. Yeah. No, it's different than other systems. You don't take a test and voila, your type appears. Although it can seem like that when you go on and take a test online or something. It's really a self-selecting thing. And this is a little disconcerting for some people. They feel like, what? I have to choose? Yes, you have to choose. You get to read about each type. You get to do your own exploration. You can go for the quicker way, which is take an online test and they'll give you a full readout. And for some, that's right on, and that can be very helpful. But for others, there's more nuance. There could be trauma. There could be disabilities. There could be things that impact it. So it might take a one-on-one interview, a typing interview. It just might take time. For me, it took me 4 months to really land on my type. And the type that I was thought was the worst one on the whole wheel was the one that I was. So it's not always a nice, friendly, cozy, happy adventure. It can be quite alarming and upsetting to find your type. Just giving you a little heads up. For those of you that just want the surface, it can be super helpful and help you understand your loved ones. But for those of you that really want to do the work with it, there can be a shadow side, a darker, passage with this. But to answer your question, Cindy, you have to make your own decision where you fit on this wheel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Great. Carla, you have a question? There we
Yes,
go.
I do. I really have more of a comment too. I also have been working with the Enneagram for probably 7 or 8 years now. And I'm a unity minister that both my parents were unity ministers. So new thought, I'm marinating in what it is. And what I loved about the Enneagram was seeing your shadow, the parts of you that are hidden, because then you can truly work on the transformation aspect. You're not trying to just change an aspect of yourself, but you're trying to transform. And my work with churches now is interim transitional work. And what I'm doing is I'm attempting the best way I know how, Allison, I might be reaching out to you, to help like boards learn how to communicate more authentically with each other and be less judgmental. Or what I find is they're afraid of the dark side, so then they get gossipy and everything happens outside of the meeting and the church falls apart. So just my comment on how valuable I think the Enneagram is to our really developing know thyself. And that's truly our work, is
Yes.
know ourselves, then we can be more influential with other people. We can inspire, we can support, we can actually challenge. Anyway, that's my
Yes.
comment. Thank you,
Oh,
Alice.
no, I love it. I love it. Yes, it's extremely helpful. And there are so many layers that I didn't get to. And what Carla was talking about is like our vices, our passions, our virtues, our fixations. It really gets into helping you see what your mental patterns are and what you have aversions to as far as working with others. And once you see this, you can relax, because there's a great relaxing of the energy inside you once the light of awareness is pointed out and that it's illuminated, and then that you're not just in that reactive state or go get all offended in your group and go gossip to the other people in the congregation or the team. You can catch yourself before you succumb to that energy within you that is running you. Anyway, I could get really.
And I found it
Great job.
really helpful to recognize that my natural inclination is to be reactive.
Yes.
So when I can remind myself I want to react, I go, ooh,
Yeah. It really helps us take a pause before we react and learn how to respond from the very most healthy part of our personality that allows our essence to come through so clearly and authentically. It's a beautiful tool.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you so much. Thanks, Ali. Just wonderful stuff. And thanks, Carla, for the question. Nick, you have a question or a comment?
I have a question. I used to study psychology way back, like I like to say, in another millennium. But one of the things we talked about when I was a psychology student was, are the qualities in our psychology, do they arise by nature or by nurture? In other words, do we inherit them, or are they conditioned by our environment and our experience? I think that's a complicated question, and I got an impression from what you said that it's a hard question to apply to the Enneagram. But I'm going to invite you to start telling us is our type and our instinct more by nature or by nurture?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I love this question because it's both. When I was talking at the beginning of the ego and the the essence is our nature, and the personality structure, the ego, is a combination, but that is where we're nurtured, sometimes for the good and sometimes the not so good. And so, for instance, our ancestry, the nature that comes through our ancestry, through our mothers, through our fathers, through our grandparents, shows up in our type. We are definitely a product not only of our environment, we're a product of our ancestry, and this also plays out in the Enneagram. There are many teachers now, phenomenal teachers in the world of psychology, that are shining light on the nature and nurture aspect of the personality types. If you're looking to go deep within this, I'd suggest Beatrice Chestnut and Uranio Paez. Those are two teachers that they've written. Well, Beatrice has written, B. Chestnut has written several books. They've written a book together that maps out a whole path to awakening through the subtypes, through these 57 types. And it will clearly help you track, where did this come from in me? Did this come from my mother's side? Did this come from, like for me, I grew up in England. My dad was in World War II, meaning he was a child in World War II and was shipped out from London out into the countryside, and grew up with a great sense of being away from his parents, being in absolute terror of the bombing. And so my dad was a self-preservation type. He was very emotionally unavailable. Now, that had an impact on me. So I was affected by the nature and the nurture that he got. What happened to him? Likewise with my mother, growing up with two alcoholic parents. She wasn't an alcoholic, isn't an alcoholic, but I was impacted by her emotional, her emotional inavailability, because her parents weren't there for her physically or emotionally. So you can see how you can go very deeply into things like Nick just asked, as far as, psychologically, how does this affect your Enneagram type? And I could talk more about it, but I won't. Did that help, Nick?
Yes, and it seems to me you were talking quite a bit about environment, which is the nurture side of the argument. So so I guess I've got a picture, although I have to admit I don't have a good picture because I think this is a lot of depth. I think you made that clear.
Yeah, and just to say more about the environment for a minute, different countries have different types. And now this is, so you could, you can think of the work ethic in the Asian cultures, for instance. That environment nurtures a particular sort of, work ethic, for instance, or a sense of, like, growing up in England, we are more guarded around sharing our emotions or sharing too much, although that doesn't seem to affect me. But there's certain things that we learn from the environment that we grow up in, that, like, some of the Hispanic, Latino cultures are very giving and nurturing. They're more of a type 2. And so you could see how that would be more strongly influenced or projected into children or the school system or the cultural systems in general, or more of an artistic, Italy, for example, might have more of a propensity for beauty or aesthetics. Or food, or, so there's different ways our environment can affect our type.
Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful. Great questions, Nick. Thanks so much. Celeste, do you have another comment or question?
Yes, I do. And I want to go back to the shy, quiet, reserved little girl that I once was.
I'm sorry,
And
what?
keeps coming up on these personality traits that I'm an introvert. And my supervisor at the time, who sent me to a conference on Myers-Briggs, said, well, if she's an introvert, we don't want to know about the others. Because I said, it has nothing to do with shyness. It has to do with where we get our energy. And I said, introverts get it from being alone, and extroverts get it from being with people. And if you have one extrovert in a group of introverts, they're going to be very unhappy.
Mm. Yeah, that definitely plays a part in the Enneagram too. And we get more specific to that. There are influencing factors such as the subtype, the self-preservation type, can be more introverted until they get their needs met. The one-to-one can be more introverted until they make that bond with a group or a person, and then become more extroverted within that. So we have different layers and levels, but just the awareness of these things can help us to, we've all heard Joe Dispenza talk about breaking the habit of being yourself. This is a wonderful map and tool to understand yourself so that you can stretch your wings, move beyond, learn growth strategies so that you're not stuck in a pattern, you're not held hostage by some of your mental patterns and fixations.
Well, as I learned later on in life, I said, you can get me out of my shell, but you cannot get me back in.
So thank you,
Phyllis. Thank you so much. So we are wrapping it up. We are getting close to the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Allie. And I had a couple of comments from people saying we need to have a workshop. And I said, yes, I've already suggested that, and we'll see how that works out. But thank you so much. It was just a lot of great information, and so appreciate you. So thanks everyone for being here, and thank you, Allie, for such a great talk. Dr. Steve, all right.
These are all the leftovers from the retreat.
Aha, beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for having me. Thank you for the snacks, and I love you, and let's plan a workshop at some point.
Absolutely. We'll do that one of the quarters that's coming up. Bill, do you have anything you want to share about what's happening for Anton?
Absolutely. Speaking of quarterly workshops, on December 6th, Saturday, is going to be the New Thought Understanding of Advent, which Dr. Ruth Miller is going to be facilitating. We're starting a new quarterly program, a seasonal finger labyrinth walk, and we're doing them. The first one is going to be on the winter solstice, which is December 21st. Information coming out about that. You do not have to make your own finger labyrinth. It's going to be on Zoom. The facilitators are in Hawaii, so maybe that's a good opportunity to get a little envious on the coldest day of the year for all the rest of us. Membership renewals are coming up on January 1st, so keep your eye out for that. And also, the 2026 retreat has been announced, and you can get early bird registration for that. It's Aligned, Awake, Aware, with Floyd Lula doing the music and a program to be put together. And also, if you're called in any way to volunteer, to participate in bringing about this retreat, there will be invitations to do that as well.
Got it all out. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming. I do want to mention that Charles Geddes is having his Spirit in the Desert retreat coming up in March. So you want to say anything about that, or put your information in the chat there, Charles?
Just go to our website, deepeningroots.org, and you'll get full information about our Zoom programming and this incredible retreat, March 28th to April 2nd next year. Thanks, Pjae. I love you.
Absolutely, honey.
And
Yeah,
Allie,
absolutely.
adore you. Thank you.
Thank
And
you. Love you,
our next,
Charles. Love you,
December-
everyone.
our next
December-
TLT is going to be on the 18th because of the fourth Thursday would be Christmas Day. So we will have our next TLT on the third Thursday, the 18th for December. And that will be Jerry Troyer, our president, will be talking about whatever he wants to talk about. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. I do encourage you guys to check out the Anton website for all the things that are going on. Bill does a great job of keeping that up. So thank you again, all of you, for being here. Thank you so much, Allison. That was just wonderful. Wonderful.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So long.
Bye-bye.